Picking up where we left off on part 1, here in part 2 we'll further explore one particular hypothesis pertaining to the M cave. According to Kenny Veach, something he couldn't identify spooked him about this particular cave and deterred him from entering it. This was highly unusual as he made a habit of exploring every cave he could find. Furthermore, something about the cave gave him the sense that his body was vibrating. Many speculate these strange effects were due to infrasound. Infrasound could be naturally or artificially produced. Experiments have shown that some people seem to be more sensitive to it than others. While infrasound seems to affect those sensitive to it in slightly different ways, Kenny's reaction to the cave is quite similar to how certain individuals react to infrasound. I recently conducted my own experiment into how people react to infrasound, the results of which were quite consistent with other experiments conducted over the years. But I stumbled across something intriguing, something that may lend some credence to the theory that there very well may have been a good reason to arm the alleged M cave with some sort of infrasonic system to deter curious explorers from venturing in. It's highly speculative, and I'll be the first to admit that it might be nothing more than just a geographic coincidence. But as far as I know, no other source on the M cave mystery has ever shown specifically what I'm about to show you in this video. How exactly does infrasound affect us? Before going over the results of my own experiment, I want to briefly summarize an experiment performed 15 years ago. In May of 2003, a double-blind study was carried out to gauge people's reaction to infrasound. The experiment took place during 2 back-to-back concerts at the Purcell Room, London. At 4 points during the show, the audience was asked to fill out a brief questionnaire. Just before 2 of these points, the project team flooded the auditorium with infrasound. The audience reported 22% more unusual experiences while the infrasound was being played. They reported a shivering sensation going down the spine, shivering on the wrist, an odd feeling in the stomach, increased heart rate, increased anxiety, a cold sensation, and a sudden memory of an emotional loss. So how did that compare with the results of my experiment? Well, I can't give an exact figure like 22% were affected and 78% were not. I did get some comments of people who were definitely affected, and I put that in the yes category. And I got some comments from people who were definitely not affected, and I put that in the no category. But some comments I wasn't quite sure what to do with, like Sparky Tuttles really could have gone either way. She mentioned she was highly stressed beforehand, can't sleep, can't eat, looking for an ambush. So, like I said, it really could have gone either way, so I didn't put that in the definite yes or definite no category, and there were a few other comments like that too. So in the yes category, my first commenter, Anarchy Zed, seemed to have had the most intense reaction out of anyone. He writes, "Seriously triggered my anxiety. My head and torso got tense, and it made me nervous. At the end, light tunnel vision feeling." Ringworm FPV talks about feeling butterflies in his stomach and a bit of anxiety. Renee Cruz talks about feeling a little weird, and I guess he's describing a somewhat dark sensation. Cindy Washington, anxiety and difficulty breathing with question marks. Nell72, I had a difficult time trying to form a coherent thought, tense, lost, difficulty in analyzing what exactly I am trying to convey, discomfort. David Giron, not sure how his last name is pronounced, felt a little nauseated. Those were the 6 that I put into definitely yes, it affected me. So let's take a look at some of the no's, it did not affect me. So as you can see here, I got definitely a lot more comments saying that it did not affect them than saying it did affect them, which again is consistent with the previous experiments that have been done. And you can take a look at these if you like, pause the video and read through them. One thing that I'll say though is Gonzalo Valdez, on the second time that he did the experiment, he did report feeling something. I didn't include that in the yes category because at that point of time he knew what the experiment was, and that could be chalked up to like a placebo effect, so that's why I didn't include his other comment in the yes category. Now, interestingly, I had a few commenters talk about tinnitus, and I did read somewhere that there is some connection with infrasound and tinnitus. I'll try to find that article and put it in the description. By the way, I'll put more articles in the description about other experiments that have been done, as well as articles citing the experiment that I just told you about, the 2003 experiment. Now, here are 3 other comments that I did not include in the yes or no category. 3 people were sort of expecting like a jump scare. I totally didn't foresee that in my experiment, and I probably should have anticipated that, but I didn't. But either way, I didn't include these 3 comments for that reason. Now, I had 2 comments that were very, very interesting. Both Lorraine Phillips and Wake Paranormal TV talked about perhaps noticing a slowing down or a speeding up in the countdown. Now, I find this really interesting because with some UFO close encounters, it's reported that there's a sense that time is slowing down. And this is something that Beyond Creepy has mentioned quite a bit in some of his videos. And I have to wonder now, is that sense of time slowing down caused by infrasound? So Beyond Creepy, if you happen to be watching this video, I would love for you to take a closer look into the possible connection between infrasound and the sense of time slowing down. So anyway, I just found these 2 comments really interesting for that reason. Now let's move into the part of the video where I'm going to talk about what I think is the most interesting aspect of this. I was on Google Earth and I found something interesting. Now, again, I'll admit this might just be a coincidence. But before I play you that video, I want to set it up a little bit. On September 10th, 2001, a very, very big announcement came out. Donald Rumsfeld said something publicly that would have been a much bigger piece of news had it not been for what happened the next day.
The day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten. More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account for 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America.
Then fast forward a little bit. Phil Schneider. Phil Schneider believed he knew where this money went. Well, you know what? I'll just play a clip and it's pretty self-explanatory.
The first part of this talk is going to concern deep underground military bases and the black budget. Let me first start by emphasizing the black budget. The black budget is a secretive group, basically a secret budget. It garners 1/4 of the gross national product, the entire gross national product of these United States. At present, the gross national product is around $5 trillion, so 1/4 of that's about $1.25 trillion per year. At least 1.023 trillion, and I say at least, is used in black budget programs like deep underground military bases. Presently, there are 129 deep underground military bases in these United States. These bases comprise basically of large cities underground. They're connected by high-speed monorail magneto-leviton trains that can go up to Mach 2. The average depth of each base is roughly a mile deep. They are basic whole cities hollowed out underground. They are somewhere between 2 2/3 cubic miles and 4 1/4 cubic miles hollowed out underground. You might ask how this is done. Well, right now they have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel 7 miles in one day. Obviously, we the public know how to been done. The black projects, as we know them, sidestep Congress, which is illegal.
Phil Schneider spoke publicly quite a bit about this, and as we all know, he died under very, very mysterious circumstances shortly thereafter. So think of it what you will. I do find it interesting and suspicious. So here is where I'm going to tie everything together. Watch. Okay, so here is a picture of where Kenny was hiking. It's the red outline here. Now, let me show you something on Google Earth. Let's start with Nellis Air Force Base. Okay, so here's Nellis. Gonna zoom in. There's the runway right there. Now you might be wondering what this red line is. That will make sense in just a minute. Okay, again, so here's the same area where he was hiking that I'm outlining right now. So let's keep following this red line. Alright, so this area right here, this white spot, this is Groom Lake, and some of you might be figuring out where I'm going with this right now. The red line ends with good old Area 51. So, it would seem that where he was hiking was directly in the path between Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51. What are the odds of that? Furthermore, if you're familiar with deep underground military bases, you might have, or DUMBs, D-U-M-B-S, you might have also heard that allegedly there are massive tunnel systems all across America, deep underground, that connect various military locations. So what if this red line right here, what if there is a tunnel right there connecting connecting Area 51 and Nellis. I gotta say, I mean, this is possible. This is very possible. And this M cave, what if... I'm throwing out a lot of what ifs here, and I know, so bear with me, but what if this cave, if it did exist, what if it led to this tunnel? The military would have a clear reason to try to deter people away from that cave. So, that much makes sense. Hey everyone, Drew here from Mad Cat Mysteries, and I hope you enjoyed the video you just watched. If you did, you can click on the subscribe button below. I'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.